Welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue unpacking the last character of this week. And it keeps the consistency of this cross on the top of the frame. And that, we have seen 5 of them this week, may come from different things. And the same happened to this last character. This, if you know Chinese a little bit, it means south, pronounced as nan. However, this concept is not that easy to derive to. And scholars have their different opinions. Basically, there are 2 camps of ideas of how visually we express the concept of south with this shape, like what this is about. So on the top here, horizontal line and this slightly diagonal line there, corresponding to 2,000 years ago's Xixin dictionary, describing this. And this we know is a plant or grass symbol. It's basically upward, somewhat facing, upward going, growing thing, plant as we observed. Only dropping down is bamboo. So bamboo is the only one depicted dropping down as a leaf draping down versus the rest of the plant going upward, sun facing. Now this is a plant, one version, on top of a hill. And then, okay, in the middle here, this sheep looking thing with 2 horns of fluffy hairs. Even if a sheep have 3 rows of fluffy hairs, here obviously shorten one. So we cannot say this is a sheep or this is simplified shorter sheep or less fluffy sheep. We don't know that. Then this was explained as on top of a tall hill, some plant growing. Well, that doesn't really look like it, does it? First off, this plant doesn't connect to the environment. It's like a rootless, floating plant on top of the hill. The hill camp mostly talks about, okay, the reason why it's south, because in the south, the weather is warm, so you can see these tall trees growing on top of a hill, like thriving. That describes kind of a warm climate, environment, I guess. Picture the tall growing palm trees, things like that. Okay, this first off doesn't look like a palm tree. A palm tree's leaf is longer and draping down, right? This is a regular plant symbol, and also it doesn't like plant all the way through onto the top of the hill. And why top of the hill? And why this sheep-looking thing? There was no explainer of that. So one is this scenery of the on top of the hill thing. The second explanation is, okay, this is actually a bell shape. And these are whatever carved on top of the bell. And ancient times, the bell was not like a church bell. We don't really have church. We do have monasteries. And in monastery, there were bell. And also in big ancient towns, we do have bells as a timekeeper. So however many continuous bells you heard would mark the time start of the day, because back then nobody owns a phone or a watch even, right? All that were later inventions. So this bell with the top here would be something kind of holding the bell onto to hang it up in the air so that the bell can vibrate without being hindered by something touching the bell body. So the bell, because it was used mostly in southern part of China back then this bell shape was associated with the south. So either this tall tree on top of the hill associated with warm weather, or this bell as a part of instrument for an ancient orchestra mostly used in southern China, therefore it's associated with the south. I don't exactly buy any of them. Okay, I kind of scouted for visual cue from the ancient different garden varieties, versions of the concept of south. Because, okay, at the beginning, to describe a concept, the visuals may come in its own flavors and styles, may be recorded through thousands of years or at least hundreds of years at different locations, recorded differently on different surfaces. Turtle shells or bones, or on top of ceremonial cast bronze bells, or written down on a piece of fabric that hasn't rotten away, that we can discover thousands of years of later of a similar, of a rendering of this concept of South. And I guess scholars spend so much time derive or deduce that this particular shape means South in the context as well. And this is their best guess. And I happen to see this shape. Okay, according to my current understanding of Chinese, here's my explainer. I don't buy into either camp's scholars' guesswork. I mean, they're all guesswork. This is my guesswork, okay? I'm competing with the other versions. The top here looks like the fire symbol, and the fire in Chinese association with the four directions, we assign fire to the south because south is hotter in Chinese geographic context. The north is water, so it's kind of yin and yang, right? Yin associated with water, with cooling, and the south associated with fire, with hot. That makes sense, right? And the east is wood. The west is metal or gold. And I guess probably on the east, it's lower elevation, so more woods growing. The west is higher elevation, more exposed mountains, kind of like a Grand Canyon kind of typography. In China West is if you look at China horizontal, elevation of China, like a Himalaya, right? The Mount Everest on the far west. That's the kind of the rooftop of the world, right? Land-wise, and then keeps going down all the way to the east. And the east is lower elevation, more plants growing. And above a certain tree line, nothing growing. So the west is symbolized with the earth, rare earth, as China hold it. Now that we can see that mineral excavating was a thing for the West. So West is metal, East is wood, but it's the South is the fire. And so the fire symbol placed on the top, and then the three horizontal line with one vertical line. That by itself, Chinese means harvesting or plant thriving. And I can see that plant, for plants to thrive, it grows kind of a branch off many, kind of growing a thicker layer of foliage so that it's well watered, well sunbathed. It has the energy resources to grow into a thick layer of things. So this is the three horizontal line with one vertical line puncturing through. It's describing how thriving the plantation is. And then the two vertical lines kind of shaped like this. We've seen this a lot, and I believe my today's understanding would be furthered in the future when I discover more about Taoism, about all the ancient Chinese philosophy of how the world operates, right? The fire coming down, the energy coming down, so that the separation of this would be the energy of, I guess, separation of the energy. I'm not sure, like ancient times, people know that the fire from the top, which comes from the sun, the heat coming from the sun, would create this atmospherical turbulence kind of going this way, because I know the southern China got the monsoon season because of the heating and the ocean, and then more turbulence of, I guess that's water from the ocean to the land, more churning of that. So I'm not sure if this shape actually describe volatility of how the circulation of the Earth's humidity happen under the heat of the fire. Not sure if ancient people know that, but at least here it shows some movement, some dynamic, some separation. That it's not like a one solid, stiff, static piece, but it's separated, dynamic, keep changing piece. And the fire probably speed up the change, the rate of change, and that whole environment have thriving plants to go with it. That's my picture, and that's associated with southern China. Okay, so I have to remind you that the origin of Chinese character doesn't start all over China's current China location at once. It has a start local point, which is around the Yellow River, which is kind of northern China, and gradually spread across the panels like Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, China, Vietnam, all that adopt the Chinese characters later on. So it's an evolution, it's a continuation and a spreading of the Chinese characters. And so understanding of geography of what it means of south in the context of China's geographic or environmental southern China context, this hot fire with plant thriving, growing with this dynamic atmospheric changes, all that could be how northern China, the language creator perspective, in comparison to the northern China, where the language first started, to feel, to view as a southern China. Okay, so here we have 3 examples. I intentionally put nan as the last character in this 2-character set phrase, and to give you a progression of understanding of what nan means to Chinese culture. Okay, Jiangnan, here, Jiang means Changjiang, the long river, which is this big W shape going from the west of China, Tibet, and this big W curve all the way to Shanghai. So Shanghai is the entry point to the river, the freshwater river, to meet with the ocean water. So Shanghai is that port city, and that's where the location-wise, the Jiang is about. And Jiangnan talks about the south, the whole south part of China, below or south to that long river. Okay, Lingnan, Ling, here, ridges. We're talking about, I guess, 5 particular ridges that's located in southern China. So below this long river, kind of in the middle of China, probably 1/6 of lower down to the southern China, close to Canton, kind of the southern border of China, from the north, Mongolia, all the way to, I guess, the southern China, Hong Kong. So if you cut it into 6 parts, and then the bottom 1/6 would be roughly where this ridges located. And so, as you can tell, if it is a range of mountain, it's going to cut off the humid hot air from south of China, southern China. So we can see that as like Vietnam, Philippines, Taiwan, those countries, hot air, they share similar climate, right? And the ridges would hold or cut off the humid air from the south. And so that you have a distinctive climate change. And from the different climate, kind of a tropical, subtropical climate of south to those ridges. So Lingnan means south to those ridges, which are very diverse in its language and in its plantation, in its culture. Like there are so many minority groups in Lingnan that northern China is probably more flat, and therefore the customs, the plantations, the landscape probably shared more to a bigger scale, versus south to those ridges, it was more diverse, more hilly. So the elevation change, the land kind of rolling, And so you have more micro environment and micro cultures and language to go with that. So that's Lingnan. So Cantonese is one of the, I guess, signature language from there. Yunnan, cloud south. Okay. I mean, we're talking about the locations in China that defined by a river or by ridges. What is cloud to do? Like, what is cloud south would be? Yunnan, if you heard a little bit, is the southernmost China. Actually, I just realized we have Hainan, the ocean south, even more. So it's an island, kind of like Hawaii equivalent of, for China, is a separate separated by the ocean. So that's why it's called the ocean south. So it's Hainan. Here, Yunnan, the cloud south. I would imagine that that's a very humid place that shrouded in cloud all the time. And so when you talk about, if you look at those clouds, south to those clouds, that would be the location for Yunnan, which is a beautiful place that looks like this. It got a very diverse typography, a terrain that got the snow-capped mountains, and this probably is kind of Han, the northern China influence, have this kind of a roof-looking thing. The decorations, all that details, like symbols, probably passed down from the central part of China's culture. But this is a very biodiverse, language, cultural diverse place, and with awesome sceneries. I definitely hope one day I can make it over there to Yunnan. Here we go. Nan, thank you for your time. See you another day.